Hey y'all, welcome back to the cheat code. As promised, I was going to be doing another Chris Brown reading, and I don't know if that's still coming. We'll have to wait till Friday's lineup. But I also mentioned that I might have to take a little bit of a break, or there might be a bit of a delay in the next 2 weeks, just because I'm a little bit overwhelmed with some other little things going on. So we'll see what my spirit guides guide me to do, but then also, life still has to move on. So we are talking today about Chris Brown. So I still wanted to do a little something about Chris Brown, something that has my guides have wanted me to do for quite some time. And I'm finally getting around to it. I wanted to mention, like, just to preface that if you are interested in still, like regular uploads about Chris Brown, definitely check out Pretty Blind Eyes, her page. She is back to uploading. I mentioned her in the past readings that I've done, the celebrity readings, that I was inspired to do it by her because she was, I guess, taking a break or something. So she's back to doing regular uploads. She has a Chris Brown upload now. I listened to a few of her readings and they seem to be matching the same energy. And I mentioned something about that as well. So I'll touch on it next time I do another Chris Brown reading. But this is kind of like a reading intuitive message kind of thing here for Chris Brown. So basically, what I was thinking about was, could someone like Iyanla Vanzant fix Chris Brown's life? And what I mean by that, and I made some notes so I can just remember the topics that I wanted to touch on, just in case my spirit guides want to go a little crazy with some messages or anything like that. So basically, Chris Brown for a long time has had quite the ups and downs in the public eye. I don't think that everyone has quite forgiven him. Even to this day, I believe he has a court hearing or something like that that's scheduled for October in the UK. So, and that again has to do with, things and behaviors that, stem from things that we've seen from him in the past. And I just always had like a strong opinion that, myself, I actually studied public relations. So I felt like, hey, if I was his PR person, what would I recommend for him in terms of, fixing his image, so to speak, in the public eye? And I don't necessarily think that you can, it's not about playing psychologist and, manipulating the public, but basically when people have PR people, or just like marketing, you're basically advertising yourself. And if people are not, fully giving you the opportunities, like I think, he's overdue for, playing at the Super Bowl. I think he would have been someone who would have had a halftime show already, regardless of whoever was in charge of them. Now that Jay-Z's in charge of them, I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. But just in terms of like repairing his image, it's not really about manipulating anyone. It's just, it's similar to a lawyer or a counselor of any kind. You have to listen to them and you have to follow their guidance if you do want to present yourself better. And at the end of the day, it's for everyone's, when I say everyone, meaning the people that you're counseling, even as a PR person, it involves psychology, law, marketing, pretty much everything under the sun. And they have to, again, follow your guidance. Otherwise, it's not really going to change anything, not only for you, but for how people view you. Sorry if I'm not a little bit sorry, I meant to say if I'm not in frame 100%. It's kind of a quick little thing that I decided to do, kind of not last minute, but in terms of like making notes so I can stay on track. So let me try and stay on track with this and stay on track with the time. And oddly enough, I can't even see it. Okay, now I can. All right, so let's stay on track. So yeah, some of the notes that I made was that, so way back when, going back to the incident that happened with Rihanna, and also, so the Rihanna, skirt. Okay, so it's going to be cut, edit, insert. So what am I looking at? Let me pause this. All right, so I just had to gather my thoughts again for a second. All right, so what I was going back to was the Rihanna situation. So even stemming far back to that situation and all of his behaviors since then, or even going further back than that, I remember first when I kind of got this idea, or at least when I was thinking about it, going back as far as Anyone who might have seen him when he was on the Tyra Banks show. And I remember that's the first time that he mentioned having experienced violence in his home. Um, he had mentioned seeing his mom being abused, and yeah, he mentioned something about wetting the bed. He's mentioned this before, but or since then, I should say, rather, wetting the bed. And one of the statements that he made that I think was very, I guess, pronounced for me was that he said that he would never do that to a woman or put his hands on a woman because of what he saw his mom go through. So I was thinking about that, and when the incident happened, I was just like, how ironic that, he ended up in this situation. And one thing that I learned is that when you are in a situation where you're experiencing abuse, that you tend to either become the abuser or you will maintain the role of being a victim. And it's not necessarily a conscious choice. Like, some people don't go either way and they get help, or it doesn't really affect them, or it comes out in different ways, but it's an unconscious decision. And that opinion has been shared by, I guess, professionals like psychologists, psychiatrists, who talk about people who are victims of abuse or who have been witnessing abuse in their home. So I felt like him and Rihanna definitely shared that in common. And she's talked about, her experiences in her home and her relationship with her father. So I think that, I don't know if you want to call what they had like trauma bonding, but definitely I feel like if he had led with that, because he already was consciously aware at that time, and I'm sure at that point, hopefully he wasn't abusive with anyone, but if he had led with that point that, he had seen this in his home, and him and Rihanna, they, discussed that, and that's what they had in common, and they found, maybe solace in each other, comfort in each other, after going through what they've gone through, that, he never imagined himself to like be in a situation like that. So if he had maybe led with that honesty, and I don't know that to be his truth, I'm just saying, if, this is, because that's what I noticed that they have in common, and if that is the case for them, and if he did already admit that he didn't ever see himself putting someone else in that position, he should have led with that, and just been honest. Because it seems like he kind of ducked and dodged, the question. He get extremely violent, like the incident on Good Morning America, when he was being asked about Rihanna after the incident, and he threw a chair out the window. And then there's a picture of him walking down the street, ripping off his shirt. Like, he was just infuriated. The incident with him throwing a rock at his mom's car. These are things that are documented that you can search online. And that was at an anger management counseling, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just like, it seems like his temper hasn't changed. His temperament hasn't changed. Alleged, addiction that he kind of addressed on a Hot 97 interview that I saw, where, people were asking, well, the interviewers were asking him about it. And he made a comment kind of, I guess, admitting to it, saying that, he has seen some pictures of himself, where he feels like he looks like a skeleton, or like Skeletor, the character from He-Man, or something like that. Something about the skeleton, because his face was very gaunt. So yeah, he kind of, he admits to little things here and there. And then even when he did his own documentary on YouTube about the incident, I don't know what prompted that, if he does have a PR person, if they suggested that, because maybe that was the time that he wanted to turn, a new leaf, and I guess have people view him a different way, release some music, and not always have to answer these questions about what happened in the past and in the public. And like I said, if he had just addressed it and not beat it around the bush, like he did on the Larry King interview, and then also it was a statement, I remember seeing Rihanna react to that when she was doing her interview. I think it was with Diane Sawyer, and she asked her to look at the video, and I think that was the first time that anybody saw her and Chris interacting at that point. Other than, I think it was during his, I don't know if this was actually before or after he had to go to his hearing about the assault situation. So yeah, she said it sounds like he read it, and it was true, because he was like looking and then kind of looking down like he was looking at a teleprompter. So for her, she was acting like, it didn't really seem very sincere. So she also had her what was it, the Oprah interview that she did, where she talked about the fact that she wanted to just, be there for him after after everything that had happened, and how the public was treating him. And again, that's kind of like, abused kind of thing that we tend to see and hear, where I felt like she was again coming from that standpoint of having experienced that in her home, and maybe personal things that he might have shared with her that made her still feel empathetic towards what he was going through in the public. And also maybe her just still being, in a state of victimhood. That's just my opinion. So, um, what else was I going to say about it? Yeah, just the fact that he had the opportunity on several occasions to just be honest. I remember even like before him and Rihanna were public, and I remember the incident happened on a Grammy night. So they still weren't really confirmed in public as being a couple, but people kind of just assumed. And he was very reluctant prior to that to say that they were even in a relationship. And I remember him addressing the paparazzi. He was like in some kind of underground parking or something like that. And they approached him and asked him about her. And he said, how would you feel if someone put a camera in your face and was asking you about who you're dating and all that type of stuff? And fair enough. But that's where, again, having a PR person could have helped him to have a little bit of training to say, okay, you know what, just ignore them, just kind of let it roll off your shoulders. But if you're holding grudges, if you're still holding damage from childhood issues and things like that, it might not be that easy to just, continuously brush it off. You're probably going to build it up for a while within yourself, and then there'll be an explosion, which tends to happen. So again, I just keep going back to the fact that if he had just led with honesty, he doesn't have to tell the whole truth about their relationship or anything that happened. He could have just said what the general idea was that was circulating online. I'll just say for now that it's alleged that she had seen something in his phone that had to do with another woman, and as a result of that, she got upset, and the situation it escalated, it got aggressive. And I remember one thing that Judge Judy said, which was very interesting, which was that when she was asked about it on Larry King and she saw the picture, she said, well, they didn't show the picture there. I don't think they did. I can't remember. But she had said that the picture of Rihanna did not look like someone who was defending themselves. It looked like someone who got beat up. And that was very, kind of eye-opening to hear her say that as a judge, an actual judge, not just a TV judge, but as a judge. And she said that you have the right legally to defend yourself up until the point to, remove yourself from the situation. But anything beyond that is considered abuse or violence towards someone. And that's where she made the comment that her, like Rihanna's face did not look like someone who was, defending, was using her own power to defend herself. It looks like she was being abused. So whatever happened between them in that situation, he didn't have to address the details. He could have just simply said, hey, she found something in my phone. Again, this is just alleged. She found something in my phone. We already discussed it. I was getting agitated with the fact that she kept bringing it up. She wouldn't let it go. Things escalated and they went to a place that I am not proud of. And he could have had the opportunity to even, publicly state that he was taking anger management classes and what he had learned, or even, he doesn't have to go as far, especially at his age at the time, to go as far as like, visiting jails or any, institutions and speaking about violence. And if he hasn't quite learned his lessons yet, but it's the lack of honesty, accountability, and all of those things that I feel still have people feeling like he doesn't really deserve a lot of the things that he's getting. He still does have a huge fan base, and I still have seen quite a few leaps and bounds in his behavior. I feel like he still kind of has obviously that aggression in him, or otherwise he wouldn't be facing the charges that he's facing right now. But I remember also an interview that he did, I think it was with Funny Mike, if I'm not mistaken, that he said that his daughter Royalty has been trying to, hold him accountable for his actions, like calling him and, asking him. I don't even remember. I'm just going to make up this question because I can't remember exactly what it was. I wasn't paying that much attention in terms of like the details. It was a while ago. Something along the lines, like, let's say, for example, like, Daddy, did you eat today? Just kind of keeping him on track, which I think is really sweet and very innocent. And then hopefully, as she gets older, she can be someone of reason to him. Not that the child should raise their parent, but, an inspiration with how she has been there for him. And obviously having a daughter hopefully does change his attitude towards women, because I feel like a lot of his childhood trauma is presenting itself still in having multiple mothers for his children, not being able to really see. I've seen opportunities where he has gotten his family together, meaning all his children together, but not having really settled down with anyone at his age and his level of success and wanting to have children, or maybe not. I don't know if he's ever confirmed that all the children that he has were planned, but one way or another, he really needs to sit down with himself, essentially, and not like every type of therapy, not every type of therapy, but therapy is not for everyone, is what I wanted to say. You have to really find what works for you. Even someone like myself, like I've talked to counselors, I've talked to therapists and things like that. And you have to find the person that is right for you. And sometimes it's not even therapy that you need. Sometimes it's just someone to listen. Sometimes it's just, kind of like a big brother thing. I think probably would have worked for him. Like if he had someone, even in the industry, someone that I always thought would be a good pair and a matchup back in the day was Drew Barrymore and Lindsay Lohan, because Lindsay Lohan, she publicly talked about, and we all saw, because it's documented in paparazzi footage and different things like that, reality shows, etc., where her parents were, they had a volatile relationship and how much it affected her, and then her challenges with addiction and things like that have been documented in the public. And if anybody knows Drew Barrymore's background and her story, I believe she even like divorced her parents or something like that, or became, I forgot what the word is called when you divorce your parents, the legal term. But yeah, she went through all that. She went through addiction, I think when she was like 11 years old. Like if anybody I feel could relate to Lindsay Lohan's situation, it would be someone like Drew Barrymore, who did, turn that leaf and was able to, make a really good career for herself and has a different type of reputation than people would have expected for someone who came from the type of background that she did. So even finding someone in the industry like that who could be like a big brother to him and kind of, have his back, guide him, and, keep him on track, so to speak. Yeah, I don't know. Let me see if there's any other notes that I have here about what I wanted to say. So just in reviewing my notes, just make sure I covered everything I wanted to say. It wasn't quite in order or the way that I wanted it to come out, but I wanted to, just touch on this. And I think the last piece of advice that I would say as a PR person, because I didn't really kind of give my whole layout plan, but just things that I think would help him. One thing that I noticed, especially his past behavior of the posts and deletes that he used to do, a lot of online stalking, of his exes, like posting under comments that, other men would leave on their pages and things like that, making comments. I remember he made a comment on Hot 97 again. I think it might have been a different interview where he was talking about Rihanna and her dating Drake. And he had said something like, where else is she going to go? Like, who else could she be with than Drake? Because of his popularity at the time, kind of like, who's better than me? That's the only other person she could go to. And that kind of cocky kind of behavior, it's cool, but a little humility would go a long way with him as well. I feel like people just wanted him to be accountable and to show some accountability for his actions. And because he kept ducking and dodging everything for so long, and then finally, still when he did talk about it, kind of saying, well, she did this and this happened, and, kind of still beating around the bush and still kind of placing blame. And it's natural to place blame if you haven't healed yourself, to see yourself like, hey, in this case, there was a part of me that played a victim and there was a part of me that played an aggressor. However, the situation played out for them. But obviously it played out in a way where neither one of them were healed enough. And yeah, we'll just leave it there. But a suggestion that I always have, and I would even extend to anyone, when you're angry is not a good time to post online. I have a rule of thumb where even when I'm writing a letter or typing something like an email, I will wait till the next day before I send it, or at least a couple of hours, and go back and review it, regardless of what the topic is or who it's for. So my suggestion for him, even back then when he was writing a lot of things and deleting them, is like, put it in like a little, notepad in your phone, and then give yourself 5 minutes, even if you put a timer, give yourself 5 minutes, come back to it, read it. If you're still angry, add more. If you're like, damn, I said that, delete some, and then give yourself another 5 minutes, go back to it. If you still feel the same way, then hey, post it. You're less likely to have regret and like want to delete it if you give yourself some time with it, because a lot of people do things in the heat of the moment, and it never works out well. And the way that social media works, you post, like people are right on top of it, screen cap it, and it's over. It's never gone. So that would be my advice for anyone going through that, especially him at the time. I don't think he does it so much anymore. He kind of is a little bit, as he gets older, I feel he's kind of, slowing back, and he's been on tour for a while. So I think he doesn't really have the time to engage in certain things other than, again, what he's going to be dealing with in October. But yeah, that's just my thoughts and opinions on Chris Brown and how I feel like he could change his image in the public eye with those that are still kind of looking at him a little bit iffy. He definitely needs to, do the man in the mirror thing. That's actually reminding me that he did do that when he was doing a tribute to Michael Jackson, and then he actually didn't get to perform a different tribute to Michael Jackson. And everybody says that he's, this generation's Michael Jackson as well, and I don't feel like he's going to get those flowers or that credit if he doesn't take accountability and just deal with everything at once. How he would do that, stay tuned. I'll save that for the paid PR position. But yeah, that's all I really want to say about Chris Brown. If you haven't already, like, share, comment, subscribe, leave your comments about, have you forgiven Chris Brown? Everybody wants, I guess they want to have to forgive him and not just Rihanna or whoever's connected to the situation. I didn't even mention Karuchi and that stuff because, that's just kind of more evidence that, he needs some healing. But yeah, turn on your notifications to all so you can be aware of when I post and when I'm going to be doing my personal readings and anything else that I'm posting. So yeah, thanks again for tuning into the cheat code. Until next time.